In the grim darkness of the far future, where unyielding faith and war dominate the stars, the fall of the Chaos Space Marines stands as one of the most pivotal and haunting tales of the galaxy. These warriors, once the proud champions of the Emperor of mankind, now bear the corrupted banners of the ruinous powers, spreading death, despair, and heresy wherever they tread. Their origins, rooted in loyalty and sacrifice, offer a chilling glimpse into how the noblest aspirations can be twisted into engines of destruction. To understand the Chaos Space Marines, one must first delve into the grandeur of their inception. In an age long past, when the Emperor walked among his people, he sought to unify humanity under his banner. His vision of a galaxy-spanning imperium promised enlightenment, order, and survival in a universe teeming with alien threats and the allure of forbidden knowledge. At the heart of this vision stood the Space Marines, the Adeptus Astartes, genetically enhanced super soldiers crafted to be the Emperor's angels of death. They were his shield and sword, exemplars of unwavering devotion and unmatched might. But even the most brilliant light casts shadows. The Emperor's ambitions inadvertently sowed the seeds of betrayal. As he spearheaded the Great Crusade to reclaim the scattered remnants of humanity, he relied on his genetically engineered sons, the primarchs, to lead the legions of Astartes. These primarchs, each a paragon of war and leadership, were scattered across the stars by the malign influence of the warp, the chaotic dimension that lay beneath reality itself. Though the Emperor eventually reunited with his sons, their time apart left indelible marks on their minds and hearts. The Great Crusade was a time of monumental victories and terrible costs. The Imperium expanded at a breakneck pace, conquering planets, subjugating alien species, and eradicating those deemed unworthy of inclusion. Yet, beneath the glory of conquest, cracks began to form. The warp, a place of boundless psychic energy, played a central role in the Emperor's plans. Psychers were harnessed as tools, and the nascent Astronomicon allowed for faster-than-light travel and communication. But the warp was also home to malevolent entities, gods of chaos who fed on the emotions of mortals and sought to corrupt the Imperium from within. These chaos gods, Khorne, the god of blood and war, tzeentch, the lord of change and deceit, nurgle, the master of decay and despair, and slaanesh, the prince of excess and pleasure, whispered promises of power and freedom to those who would listen. Their influence spread insidiously, targeting not just mortals but the Emperor's own creations. The primarchs, despite their loyalty, were not immune to these temptations. Some harbored deep-seated insecurities and grievances, while others sought answers to questions the Emperor refused to address. The Horus Heresy, the cataclysmic civil war that shattered the Imperium, was the ultimate manifestation of these tensions. Horus, the Emperor's favored son and war master of the Great Crusade, succumbed to the seductive whispers of chaos. Under his leadership, 9 Space Marine legions turned against the Emperor, plunging the galaxy into an apocalyptic conflict. These traitor legions, their bonds of brotherhood broken and their faith corrupted, became the first Chaos Space Marines. Yet the heresy was not an abrupt fall into darkness, but a gradual descent. It was a story of ambition, betrayal, and the perilous nature of unchecked power. It demonstrated how noble ideals could be subverted by hidden fears and external manipulations. For the Chaos Space Marines, their origins are not just a tale of rebellion, but a tragedy of what could have been, a haunting reminder of the fine line between heroism and damnation. As we explore the genesis of the Chaos Space Marines, we will uncover the intricate web of forces and individuals that brought them into being. Their story is a tapestry of loyalty twisted into hatred, of promises turned into curses, and of a galaxy forever scarred by their actions. In the beginning, they were champions of humanity, yet they became its greatest threat. This transformation was not inevitable, but a series of fateful choices and cruel manipulations, a saga that reverberates across millennia. Thus begins the tale of the Chaos Space Marines, a chronicle of pride and fall, of dark gods and shattered oaths, and of a galaxy plunged into eternal war. Their origins lay not just in the ambition of gods and men, but in the profound flaws of their own hearts. As we journey through their history, we will witness the forces that forged them and the horrors they unleashed. For in their story lies a warning that even the brightest stars can be consumed by the void. The key players in the story of the Chaos Space Marines are both individuals and entities whose actions, choices, and very existence shaped the course of galactic history. Each of them contributed uniquely to the rise of the Traitor Legions, and their influences reverberate across the Warhammer 40,000 universe to this day. At the heart of this narrative are the Chaos Space Marines themselves, the malevolent deities they serve, and the forces that drove them to rebellion and corruption. The Chaos Space Marines, once paragons of loyalty and strength, were the elite warriors of humanity, the pinnacle of genetic and martial engineering. Their power was unmatched, and their discipline was legendary. They were divided into various legions, each defined by its own culture, tactics, and leadership. It was within these ranks that the seeds of betrayal took root. Some legions were known for their ruthless efficiency, while others excelled in creativity and adaptability. However, these very strengths became the foundations of their downfall when chaos exploited their pride, ambition, and hidden weaknesses. Among the most significant actors in this saga are the legion commanders who led their warriors into damnation. These leaders, imbued with unparalleled charisma and martial prowess, held sway over tens of thousands of warriors. Many of them were revered as living gods by their troops. Yet their rise to infamy was often fueled by personal grievances, ideological differences, or simply the allure of forbidden power. Their actions were not driven solely by chaos itself, but by a complex web of motivations: resentment toward the Imperium, disillusionment with their creator's vision, or the belief that they had been wronged in the grand scheme of galactic governance. Equally crucial to the story are the chaos gods themselves: Khorne, Tzeentch, Nurgle, and Slaanesh. These dark entities are not just passive deities. They are living, malevolent forces that shape reality according to their own desires. Khorne, the god of blood and war, thrives on violence and conflict, turning the battlefield into a temple of slaughter. Tzeentch, the master of change and deceit, manipulates the threads of fate, bending individuals and entire armies to his inscrutable schemes. Nurgle, the embodiment of decay and despair, offers a grim form of salvation, turning suffering into acceptance of inevitable entropy. Slaanesh, the lord of excess and indulgence, seduces with promises of boundless pleasure and sensation, twisting the pursuit of perfection into self-destruction. These gods do not operate in isolation. Their demons, unholy manifestations of their power, act as intermediaries and agents of corruption. Demon princes, once mortal beings who pledged themselves to chaos, serve as potent symbols of the rewards and costs of allegiance to the ruinous powers. These entities are not merely enemies to be fought on the battlefield. They are insidious manipulators, working through dreams, whispers, and the warp-touched minds of their chosen champions. They exploit the deepest fears and desires of their prey, turning even the most loyal warriors into tools of destruction. Within the corrupted legions, certain individuals rose to prominence as dark paragons of their respective allegiances. These figures, whether through their martial skill, cunning, or sheer force of will, became the icons of chaos. They led their followers with a fervor born of their own descent into damnation, each representing a facet of the corruption that had consumed them. Some sought revenge against the Imperium, while others embraced chaos as the ultimate freedom from the constraints of mortality and order. Their motivations were as diverse as their methods, but all shared a common goal: the destruction of the Imperium and the propagation of chaos. Not to be overlooked are the forces of the warp itself. This dimension, existing parallel to the material universe, is the lifeblood of chaos. Its energies seep into reality, twisting both the physical and the metaphysical. Warp storms, rifts, and tainted relics serve as conduits for Chaos's influence, providing a direct link between the mortal realm and the dark gods. The warp is as much a character in this story as any individual, shaping events and tipping the scales of destiny. The institutions and loyalists of the Imperium also played a role in the creation of the Chaos Space Marines. The rigid hierarchy of the Imperium, with its emphasis on absolute obedience and suppression of dissent, created an environment ripe for rebellion. The hubris of its leaders and their inability, or unwillingness, to address the grievances of their most powerful warriors allowed the seeds of chaos to flourish. The Imperium's reliance on conquest and suppression made it blind to the internal rot that would ultimately lead to its near destruction. Finally, the legions of mortal cultists, renegade psychers, and corrupted servants who joined the Chaos Space Marines form a critical part of this tale. These followers, drawn from every corner of the galaxy, serve as a reminder of Chaos's universal appeal. They are the countless faceless masses who fuel the war engines of the traitor legions, their devotion born of desperation, greed, or sheer fanaticism. Their role, while often overshadowed by their more powerful masters, is indispensable to the Chaos war machine. The interplay of these key players, the corrupted warriors, the dark gods, their demonic servants, and the mortal pawns, forms the foundation of the Chaos Space Marines' origin. Their fall was not the work of a single moment or a single actor, but a convergence of forces, each driven by its own purpose. Together, they forged an unholy alliance that would challenge the very fabric of the galaxy. The creation of the Chaos Space Marines was not a singular event, but the culmination of numerous factors woven into the fabric of the galaxy's history. It was a combination of political missteps, personal betrayals, cosmic manipulation, and unchecked ambition that set the stage for the fall of some of humanity's greatest champions. The conditions for their rise began long before their legions turned to chaos, rooted in the inherent flaws of the Imperium and the dark temptations of the warp. Central to this transformation was the Great Crusade itself, a campaign of unprecedented scale to unite the fragmented remnants of humanity under one banner. This monumental endeavor demanded absolute loyalty and obedience from its warriors, yet it was built on a foundation of rigid hierarchy and often unaddressed tensions. The rapid pace of conquest, while achieving its goal of expanding the Imperium, left little room for addressing the growing fractures within its ranks. These fractures were born not only of the differences among the legions, but also of the nature of war itself. Decades of unrelenting conflict and the dehumanizing toll of their purpose left many warriors questioning their place in the Emperor's grand vision. Compounding this was the Emperor's growing focus on his secretive projects, most notably his work on humanity's psychic potential and the construction of the Webway, a network meant to bypass the dangers of the warp. His withdrawal from the front lines of the Crusade left a vacuum of leadership, fostering feelings of abandonment and resentment among the legions. Many leaders felt as though their sacrifices were unacknowledged, their loyalty taken for granted. This created fertile ground for doubt and anger, emotions that chaos would later exploit with surgical precision. The warp itself played an insidious role, acting as both a tool and a corrupter. As the Imperium expanded, its reliance on the warp for travel and communication increased exponentially. Navigators and psychers became essential, yet this dependence also exposed the Imperium to the corruptive influence of the entities that resided within the Immaterium. These beings, the Chaos Gods, recognized an opportunity to undermine the Imperium from within. They whispered promises of power, freedom, and vindication into the minds of those most susceptible, particularly among the elite warriors who commanded the legions. One of the most significant precursors to the rise of the Chaos Space Marines was the burgeoning rift between the Imperium's ideals and its reality. While the Emperor preached the values of unity and enlightenment, the reality of the Imperium was one of relentless conquest, suppression, and dogmatic control. Many warriors began to see contradictions in the Emperor's vision, questioning why knowledge was hoarded, why certain truths were forbidden, and why the Imperium relied on brutality to achieve peace. This disillusionment, particularly among those who felt stifled by the rigid chains of imperial doctrine, created cracks in their once unshakable loyalty. Certain legions found themselves particularly vulnerable due to their unique characteristics and circumstances. Some were shaped by the harsh worlds they hailed from, where survival demanded extremes of brutality or cunning. Others felt overshadowed, unappreciated, or even purposefully sidelined. These grievances were exacerbated by the sense that the Emperor did not fully trust or respect them. Chaos capitalized on these insecurities, turning them into the foundation of rebellion. Another key factor was the Imperium's failure to comprehend the true nature of chaos. Despite the Emperor's knowledge of the warp and its dangers, he kept much of this information hidden from his subjects. This veil of secrecy left many ill-prepared to resist the subtle manipulations of chaos. When strange phenomena or whispers of power emerged, they were dismissed or suppressed without addressing their underlying causes. By the time the first signs of corruption appeared, it was often too late to reverse the damage. One of the most profound catalysts for the Chaos Space Marines' creation was the growing cultural divide between the legions and the Imperium they served. These warriors, designed and bred for war, often found themselves alienated from the very people they were meant to protect. Their superhuman nature, combined with their constant exposure to the horrors of battle, created a gulf of understanding. Many began to see themselves not as defenders of humanity, but as its masters, deserving of respect and reverence that was often denied to them. Finally, the role of chaos itself cannot be overstated. The ruinous powers were not passive observers, but active participants in the unfolding drama. They identified potential converts among the legions and worked tirelessly to exploit their weaknesses. Chaos did not simply offer power. It offered answers to the unspoken questions and desires that festered in the hearts of these warriors. For some, it was the promise of recognition and freedom. For others, it was an escape from the relentless demands of duty or the torment of their own doubts. These factors converged over decades, creating a perfect storm of discontent and vulnerability. The result was an environment where the betrayal of the legions became not just possible, but inevitable. Their fall was not a sudden event, but a gradual process, driven by the interplay of internal flaws and external manipulation. By the time the banners of rebellion were raised, the forces that had led to this moment had been in motion for far longer than most realized. Chaos had played the long game, and the Imperium, blinded by its own hubris, had unknowingly aided in its own undoing. The transformation of the Chaos Space Marines from loyal defenders of humanity to the agents of the ruinous powers unfolded over a series of pivotal stages. Each phase deepened their corruption, solidified their allegiance to chaos, and reshaped their identities into the horrifying entities that plague the galaxy to this day. This progression was neither linear nor uniform. Instead, it was marked by moments of betrayal, revelation, and unrelenting conflict that forever severed their ties to the Imperium. The earliest stage of their fall can be traced back to the subtle influence of the warp. Even before their open rebellion, certain legions began to experience strange phenomena. Whispers in the void, disturbing visions, and inexplicable occurrences plagued their ships and strongholds. At first, these were dismissed as the unfortunate side effects of warp travel, but in truth, they were the first signs of Chaos's grip tightening around its chosen victims. These occurrences sowed seeds of doubt and unease, slowly chipping away at the mental fortitude of the warriors and their commanders. As Chaos's influence grew, it began to manifest more overtly. The once disciplined warriors of the Imperium started exhibiting erratic behavior. Some were drawn to forbidden rituals and practices, dabbling in warpcraft despite the Emperor's strict prohibitions. These early acts of defiance often went unnoticed or unpunished, allowing corruption to spread unchecked. In some cases, entire groups within the legions became isolated, their loyalty subtly redirected from the Imperium to darker powers. These factions became the precursors to the full-scale rebellion that was to come. The tipping point came with open defiance. As chaos tightened its grip, certain legions declared their rebellion, rejecting the Imperium and embracing the ruinous powers. These declarations were not made lightly. They often followed years of internal conflict, ideological shifts, and personal grievances. The act of rebellion itself was a point of no return. Once they turned against the Imperium, the traitor legions could no longer hide their allegiance. They became marked as heretics, hunted by the very empire they once served. Following their rebellion, the legion's transformation accelerated. Chaos demanded loyalty and servitude, and those who pledged themselves were rewarded, or cursed, with unholy gifts. Their bodies and minds were twisted by the dark powers they now served. These changes were not uniform. Each legion's transformation reflected the nature of the god or gods to whom they had sworn fealty. Some became berserkers, consumed by an insatiable thirst for blood and violence. Others became agents of intrigue and deception, their very presence warping reality around them. Still others succumbed to decay or indulgence, their once noble forms becoming grotesque parodies of their former selves. The Horus Heresy marked the height of the Chaos Space Marines' power. The legions, now fully committed to their rebellion, waged a brutal war against the Imperium. This conflict was not merely a battle for territory, it was a war of ideology and survival. The traitor legion sought to overthrow the Emperor and reshape the galaxy in the image of their dark masters. The battles of the heresy were some of the most devastating in the history of the galaxy, with entire worlds consumed by fire and blood. Despite their initial successes, the traitor legions ultimately failed in their bid to destroy the Imperium. The pivotal moment came during the Siege of Terra, where they attempted to breach the Emperor's palace and bring an end to his rule. This climactic battle saw unimaginable carnage, with both sides suffering catastrophic losses. The rebellion was crushed, and the surviving traitors were forced to retreat into the Eye of Terror, a warp rift where the influence of chaos is strongest. In exile, the Chaos Space Marines entered a new phase of their existence. Stripped of their former glory and hunted by the Imperium, they became creatures of vengeance and despair. The Eye of Terror provided them with a sanctuary, but it was far from a paradise. The traitor legions fragmented into smaller warbands, each vying for dominance within the chaotic realm. These warbands often turned on one another, their unity shattered by the very forces they served. The once proud legions became a shadow of their former selves, driven more by hatred and survival than by any grand vision. Over the millennia, the Chaos Space Marines have continued to evolve. Their prolonged exposure to the warp has further warped their bodies and minds. Many have become more demon than man, their humanity all but erased. Their tactics have shifted as well, reflecting their fragmented nature. No longer operating as cohesive legions, they now strike as raiders and warbands, unleashing terror on the Imperium through hit-and-run attacks, surprise invasions, and insidious cult uprisings. Despite their fall from power, the Chaos Space Marines remain one of the greatest threats to the galaxy. Their history of rebellion and corruption serves as a stark reminder of the perils of ambition, the dangers of unchecked power, and the insidious nature of chaos. Each stage of their development has brought them further from the warriors they once were, forging them into the ultimate instruments of the ruinous powers. The key event that solidified the creation of the Chaos Space Marines was a singular galaxy-shaking betrayal that tore the Imperium apart and plunged humanity into an age of unending strife. This pivotal moment was not born of a single act, but rather the culmination of manipulation, festering resentment, and the inexorable pull of chaos. At its heart lay a grand conspiracy, where the loyalties of the Emperor's most trusted warriors were not merely questioned but shattered, unleashing a wave of destruction that would define the galaxy for millennia. The rebellion began in secrecy, with chaos weaving its influence like an unseen hand, guiding the destinies of its chosen instruments. These warriors, once exemplars of honor and loyalty, found themselves ensnared in a web of lies and half-truths. Chaos exploited their doubts and fears, turning the frustrations of loyal service into a gnawing bitterness. The transformation from loyal servant to rebel heretic was not immediate, but the result of years of careful grooming by the forces of the warp. The defining moment came when entire legions, led by their commanding generals, openly declared their allegiance to chaos. These declarations were not made in isolation, but in concert, their timing meticulously orchestrated by the ruinous powers. It was not enough to corrupt a single leader. The betrayal had to be total, engulfing thousands of warriors who had once stood as paragons of the Emperor's will. The turning of these legions was a masterstroke by chaos, ensuring that the rebellion had both the strength and the symbolism to shake the Imperium to its core. One of the most infamous early acts of this rebellion was the assault on worlds that had remained loyal to the Emperor. These worlds, often caught unprepared, became the sites of unspeakable atrocities. The traitor forces did not simply conquer, they annihilated, using their newfound powers to spread fear and chaos. Entire populations were sacrificed to the dark gods, their deaths fueling the growing influence of the ruinous powers. The use of warp-tainted weapons and sorcery marked a turning point as these warriors embraced the forbidden arts that their creator had sought to suppress. A particularly devastating blow came with the revelation of secret alliances between the traitors and cults already embedded within the Imperium. These cults, long hidden in the shadows, rose up in open rebellion, undermining the Imperium from within. Their actions provided critical support to the renegade forces, sabotaging defenses and spreading discord. This coordination between the traitors and their mortal allies demonstrated the extent to which chaos had infiltrated the fabric of the Imperium. One of the defining moments of the rebellion was a massacre that forever marked the traitors as beyond redemption. On a strategically vital world, loyalist and traitor forces clashed in a battle that revealed the full extent of the betrayal. The loyalists, outnumbered and taken by surprise, fought valiantly but were ultimately overwhelmed. The aftermath was horrific. The traitors did not merely claim victory, but made a statement, desecrating the dead and defiling the sacred relics of the Imperium. This act sent a chilling message across the galaxy. The bonds of brotherhood and duty had been broken, and there would be no reconciliation. In the wake of this event, the traitors fully embraced the gifts of chaos. The dark gods rewarded their servants with unholy powers, further severing their ties to their former lives. These rewards were not uniform, but tailored to each individual's desires and flaws. Some became monstrous beings, their physical forms twisted into grotesque shapes. Others gained psychic abilities, becoming conduits for the will of the warp. These transformations were both a blessing and a curse, binding the traitors irrevocably to the service of chaos. The decisive betrayal culminated in a catastrophic conflict that drew the entire galaxy into its wake. The traitors, now fully committed to their rebellion, launched a coordinated assault on key Imperial strongholds. Their strategy was ruthless, targeting not just military assets, but also symbols of Imperial authority. Temples were burned, archives destroyed, and the faith of countless citizens shattered. The rebellion was no longer simply a matter of territory or power. It was an existential threat to the very foundations of the Imperium. What made this event truly transformative was its impact on those who remained loyal to the Emperor. The betrayal forced a fundamental re-evaluation of the Imperium's strategies and priorities. New protocols were enacted to root out heresy, often at great cost to personal freedoms and trust within the ranks. The trauma of this betrayal would shape the Imperium's culture for millennia, instilling a paranoia that continues to influence its actions to this day. This key event, the ultimate act of treachery and defiance, did not simply create the Chaos Space Marines. It defined them. It was the moment when they ceased to be soldiers and became instruments of chaos, their loyalty irreparably twisted. This betrayal was more than a battle or a campaign. It was a rupture in the soul of the galaxy, a moment of profound and irrevocable change that would forever alter the course of history. The Chaos Space Marines emerged from this crucible not as broken remnants, but as something far more terrifying. The heralds of the end, sworn to the destruction of all that stands in their path. The impact of the Chaos Space Marines on the galaxy has been nothing short of catastrophic, their actions reverberating through the ages as a constant and unrelenting threat to the Imperium and beyond. Their rebellion and ongoing campaigns of terror have reshaped the political, cultural, and spiritual landscape of the galaxy, leaving scars that may never heal. The far-reaching consequences of their existence manifest in both grand and insidious ways, challenging the very survival of humanity and the stability of the universe itself. One of the most immediate effects of their fall was the decimation of the Imperium's military strength. The betrayal tore apart some of the most powerful legions, leaving the Emperor's forces divided and vulnerable. Worlds that once relied on the protection of these warriors were left defenseless against alien invasions, internal rebellions, and the relentless advance of chaos. The loss of these elite warriors forced the Imperium to adapt, creating new structures and doctrines to fill the void, such as the eventual division of the Space Marine legions into smaller chapters during the reforms of the Codex Astartes. The Chaos Space Marines also altered the nature of warfare in the galaxy. Their tactics, driven by the chaotic influence of the warp, are as unpredictable as they are brutal. They do not simply seek victory, they aim to spread terror and corruption, destabilizing their enemies from within. Their raids and invasions are often accompanied by the deliberate use of sorcery and warp-spawned entities, turning battlefields into sites of unholy ritual and leaving lasting scars on the fabric of reality. Their mere presence on a world can weaken the boundary between the material universe and the warp, allowing demons to spill forth and wreak havoc. Culturally, the Chaos Space Marines embody the ultimate warning against heresy and disobedience. Their existence has fueled the Imperium's obsession with loyalty and purity, leading to an era of paranoia and persecution. The fear of chaos infiltration has driven the Imperium to enact draconian measures, such as the creation of the Inquisition and the widespread use of psychic screening and purges. This relentless focus on rooting out heresy has come at a great cost, fostering an atmosphere of mistrust and often turning allies against one another. While these measures are necessary for the Imperium's survival, they have also stifled innovation and creativity, locking humanity into an endless cycle of repression and war. The spiritual impact of the Chaos Space Marines cannot be understated. Their allegiance to the ruinous powers represents the most direct and horrifying example of humanity's vulnerability to corruption. The existence of these fallen warriors challenges the very foundations of imperial dogma, serving as a grim reminder that even the mightiest defenders of humanity are not immune to the temptations of chaos. Their actions have fueled the Imperium's zealous devotion to the Emperor and the cult of the Imperium, reinforcing the belief that only unwavering faith can protect against the corrupting influence of the warp. Beyond the Imperium, the Chaos Space Marines have had a profound effect on alien civilizations and other factions. Their raids and conquests do not discriminate, often targeting Xenos worlds and empires to sow further discord across the galaxy. For species like the Eldar, their actions exacerbate the already tenuous balance between the material universe and the warp, threatening to unleash forces that could consume all life. Even the Tyranids, a race seemingly immune to chaos corruption, have been known to encounter chaos-tainted hive fleets, further complicating their relentless advance through the galaxy. The Eye of Terror, the primary refuge of the Chaos Space Marines, has become a symbol of the galaxy's eternal struggle against the forces of darkness. This massive warp rift, pulsing with chaotic energy, serves as both a fortress and a prison for the traitor legions. From within its depths, they launch their incursions into the material realm, yet its influence also ensures that their existence remains a constant threat. The Eye of Terror is a wound in the galaxy, a reminder of the consequences of humanity's hubris and the ever-present danger of the warp. The Chaos Space Marines have also shaped the galaxy through their interactions with mortal followers and cults. Their presence inspires countless heretical movements across the Imperium, often serving as the catalysts for widespread uprisings. These cults, dedicated to the ruinous powers, undermine Imperial authority from within, spreading Chaos's influence to every corner of the galaxy. The Chaos Space Marines often serve as the champions or overlords of these movements, using their power and influence to expand their Dark Master's reach. Perhaps the most enduring impact of the Chaos Space Marines is their role as the antithesis of the Imperium. They represent what humanity could become if it abandons discipline, faith, and unity. Their actions force the Imperium to remain ever vigilant, expending vast resources to counter their threat. This unending struggle against chaos defines much of the Imperium's existence, locking it into a cycle of war that drains its strength and prevents it from achieving true progress. Ultimately, the Chaos Space Marines are more than just a military threat. They are a symbol of the galaxy's fragility and the destructive potential of unchecked ambition and corruption. Their legacy is one of devastation and despair, a testament to the power of chaos and the price of hubris. As long as they exist, the galaxy will remain in a state of perpetual conflict, caught in the balance between survival and annihilation. The Chaos Space Marines are defined by a range of unique aspects that set them apart from any other force in the galaxy. These characteristics, rooted in their corruption and connection to the ruinous powers, make them one of the most dangerous and unpredictable enemies in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. Their individuality is a blend of ancient traditions, demonic influence, and the unrestrained brutality of warriors who have cast off all moral constraints. One of their most distinctive features is the fusion of advanced Imperial technology with the warp's corrupting power. Their war gear, forged during the height of the Imperium's technological golden age, has been altered over millennia through exposure to chaos. Power armor, once a symbol of their elite status, has become twisted and grotesque, often fused to their very flesh. Demonic faces leer from the plates of their armor, and once gleaming ceramite now drips with unholy ichor. These mutations are not merely cosmetic. They enhance the armor's functionality in terrifying ways, granting additional resilience or even incorporating living components that react to their bearer's will. Their weaponry is equally unique, blending the craftsmanship of ancient times with the gifts of the dark gods. Bolters and chainswords, the staples of their arsenal, are often imbued with warp energy, causing wounds that burn with unnatural flames or refuse to heal. Some wield demonic weapons, sentient entities bound within blades or axes, their whispered promises of power driving their wielders to greater acts of carnage. These weapons are as dangerous to their bearers as to their enemies. For a moment's hesitation can lead to the demon consuming its host. Perhaps the most striking aspect of Chaos Space Marines is their physiology. Although already superhuman due to their genetic enhancements, their bodies have been further transformed by chaos. Mutations are commonplace, ranging from additional limbs and eyes to grotesque forms that defy natural laws. These changes often reflect the nature of the chaos god they serve. Warriors devoted to khorne might grow horns or talons, while followers of nurgle are bloated with disease yet rendered nearly unkillable. Tzeentch's champions exhibit ever-shifting forms, and Slaanesh's chosen are grotesque parodies of perfection. These physical transformations, while horrific, grant them abilities that far exceed those of their loyalist counterparts. Beyond their physical alterations, the Chaos Space Marines wield a mastery of sorcery that makes them unparalleled on the battlefield. Many among their ranks have embraced the dark arts, becoming sorcerers who channel the raw power of the warp to devastating effect. Unlike the psykers of the Imperium, whose abilities are tightly regulated, these sorcerers revel in their unbridled power. They summon demons, conjure storms of warp energy, and warp reality itself to their advantage. However, this unchecked use of the warp comes with its own risks, as even the most skilled sorcerer can fall prey to the unpredictable forces they command. The Chaos Space Marines' tactics are another defining aspect of their identity. Unlike the disciplined formations of the Loyalist chapters, they operate with a feral cunning and ruthless efficiency honed over 10,000 years of warfare. Their strategies often incorporate elements of psychological warfare, such as terror campaigns and the desecration of sacred sites. They understand that victory is not always achieved through brute force, but through breaking the enemy's will to fight. This approach is especially evident in their raids, which often target civilian populations, infrastructure, and morale rather than purely military objectives. Their relationship with the demonic adds another layer of complexity to their nature. Many Chaos Space Marines have forged pacts with demons, gaining immense power in exchange for servitude. These pacts are reflected in their appearance and abilities. Some may host demons within their bodies, transforming into monstrous hybrids, while others might command legions of demonic entities. Over time, the most devoted may ascend to become demon princes, immortal beings who embody the will of their patron gods. This ascension is the ultimate goal for many, though it comes at the cost of whatever remains of their humanity. Their strongholds and war bands further highlight their uniqueness. Unlike the structured chapters of the Loyalist Space Marines, the Chaos Space Marines exist in a state of constant flux. Their warbands vary in size and purpose, from small groups of raiders to vast armies capable of toppling entire worlds. These warbands often reflect the personality and ambitions of their leaders, resulting in a diversity of tactics, cultures, and goals. Some seek to carve out empires in the name of their gods, while others are driven by personal vendettas against the Imperium or rival Chaos forces. The Chaos Space Marines also display a strong connection to their history and heritage. Many retain relics from their time as Loyalists, whether as trophies or reminders of what they once were. These artifacts are often corrupted by Chaos, serving as symbols of their fall. Some even maintain ancient traditions, albeit in twisted forms, reflecting the enduring influence of their origins despite their allegiance to the ruinous powers. Finally, their immortality, granted by their link to Chaos, makes them truly unique. While not invincible, they are not bound by the limitations of time as mortals are. This longevity allows them to accumulate unparalleled experience and knowledge, making them formidable adversaries. It also deepens their hatred for the Imperium, as they bear witness to the stagnation and decay of the empire they once served. This enduring perspective fuels their determination to see the Imperium fall, ensuring that their war against humanity will continue indefinitely. The Chaos Space Marines are a dark reflection of what humanity could become, their unique aspects serving as both a warning and a challenge to the galaxy. They are living embodiments of chaos, blending the strengths of their origins with the horrifying gifts of their new masters, creating a force that defies comprehension and stands as a testament to the corrupting power of the warp. The Chaos Space Marines are defined not only by their overwhelming power and allegiance to Chaos, but also by the legendary individuals who rise above their peers to become icons of destruction, manipulation, and ambition. These figures are more than mere warriors. They are living embodiments of the ruinous power's will, their deeds shaping the galaxy and inspiring countless heretics to follow in their wake. One of the most infamous champions is Abaddon the Despoiler, the War Master of Chaos. Once a renowned commander of the Imperium, he became a symbol of betrayal and unrelenting ambition. Abaddon's rise began during the Rebellion, where his tactical genius and unyielding will set him apart even among traitors. In the centuries following the Rebellion, he united disparate warbands into a terrifyingly cohesive force, the Black Legion. Leading 13 massive Black Crusades against the Imperium, Abaddon's name became synonymous with devastation. His mastery of strategy and charisma allowed him to rally even the most fractious of Chaos warlords, making him one of the greatest threats to the Imperium. Khorne the Betrayer, a blood-soaked champion of Khorne, is another figure whose legend inspires both terror and awe. Originally a peerless warrior known for his battlefield prowess, khorne's transformation into a living avatar of slaughter occurred during the apocalyptic siege of Terra. His devotion to khorne drove him to unparalleled heights of rage and brutality, culminating in acts of indiscriminate slaughter that earned him his infamous title. Armed with his iconic chain axe, Gorechild, khorne has become a one-man tide of destruction, slaughtering friend and foe alike in his unending quest to please his bloodthirsty patron. Lucius the Eternal, a champion of Slaanesh, is a grotesque reflection of pride and vanity taken to its ultimate extreme. Renowned for his unparalleled dueling skills, Lucius is cursed, or blessed, with a unique form of immortality. Should anyone defeat him in combat and take satisfaction in their victory, they are inevitably consumed by Lucius's soul, transforming into a vessel for his resurrection. This macabre cycle ensures his continued existence, spreading his legend and the influence of Slaanesh wherever he fights. Lucius embodies the twisted ideals of his patron, reveling in pain, excess, and the eternal pursuit of perfection. Typhus, the herald of Nurgle, is a grotesque figure whose loyalty to the Plague Lord reshaped him into a harbinger of death and decay. Once a gifted strategist and psyker, he embraced the gifts of Nurgle, becoming an avatar of disease. Typhus is inseparable from the Destroyer Hive, a swarm of warp-spawned insects that infest his bloated body and spread contagion wherever he treads. Leading his forces as part of the Death Guard, Typhus is both a conqueror and a bringer of plague, his very presence capable of annihilating entire planetary populations. Ahriman, one of the most powerful sorcerers of chaos, serves as the de facto leader of the Thousand Sons. A brilliant psyker and scholar, Ahriman's obsession with preserving his legion drove him to perform the Rubric of Ahriman, a catastrophic spell intended to cure the mutations afflicting his warriors. While the spell succeeded in stabilizing the legion's physical forms, it turned most of his brothers into mindless automatons bound to their armor. Exiled for his actions, Ahriman now roams the galaxy in search of forbidden knowledge, his intellect and ambition matched only by his mastery of the warp. His actions, though driven by personal motives, continue to shape the Thousand Sons' legacy and further the schemes of tzeentch. Fabius Bile, the twisted apothecary, is a figure of unmatched brilliance and depravity. Once a healer, his fall into heresy transformed him into a grotesque experimenter obsessed with perfecting the human form. Fabius left behind the constraints of his legion to pursue his own agenda, using the flesh of his captives as raw material for his horrific creations. His cloning experiments, genetic tampering, and mastery of bioterrorism make him a force to be reckoned with, though his allegiance is often to his own ambitions rather than any particular god. The Chaos Lords and Sorcerers of lesser renown are no less impactful in their own spheres. Figures like Huron Blackheart, the Tyrant of Badab, command fleets and armies, carving out empires within the Maelstrom and beyond. Huron's rise from a renegade leader to a powerful Chaos warlord exemplifies the ruthless adaptability of those who turn to chaos. His Red Corsairs have become a scourge across the galaxy, preying on Imperial shipping lanes and raiding undefended worlds. Daemon Princes, ascended beings who have fully embraced their allegiance to the ruinous powers, also stand as titanic figures among the Chaos Space Marines. These individuals have transcended mortality, becoming living extensions of their god's will. Beings like Belacor, the Dark Master, embody the ambitions and rewards of chaos, their power far surpassing that of mortal warriors. However, their ascension often comes at the cost of their independence, as they become irrevocably bound to their patron gods. Each of these figures represents a unique aspect of the Chaos Space Marines, from Abaddon's strategic brilliance to Khorne's unrelenting fury, and from Ahriman's quest for forbidden knowledge to Fabius Bile's grotesque ingenuity. Together, they embody the myriad paths that lead to damnation, their stories serving as both a testament to Chaos's power and a warning to those who dare to challenge its influence. These individuals, through their deeds and legacies, have become living legends of terror, ensuring that their names will be cursed across the galaxy for eternity. The Chaos Space Marines, with their millennia-spanning history and connection to the dark powers of the Warp, are shrouded in mysteries and unresolved questions that fuel countless theories. These secrets, woven into their lore, add an air of menace and unpredictability to their already terrifying existence. From the nature of their corruption to the true extent of their plans, the enigmatic aspects of these warriors continue to perplex even the most knowledgeable scholars and agents of the Imperium. One of the most enduring mysteries surrounding the Chaos Space Marines is the full extent of their connection to the ruinous powers. While their allegiance to the Dark Gods is evident, the specifics of how these entities manipulate and control their champions remain unclear. Some theorists suggest that the Chaos Gods are not as unified as they appear, and the apparent cooperation between them is nothing more than a temporary truce to advance their own agendas. This could explain the chaotic nature of the alliances within the traitor legions, where infighting and betrayal are as common as external warfare. Others believe that the gods deliberately allow these fractures, as conflict and rivalry among their servants generate the emotional energies upon which they feed. The origins of certain chaos warbands and individuals also remain cloaked in uncertainty. While many are known to have defected during the Great Rebellion, others seem to have appeared much later, their loyalties turned in mysterious circumstances. There are whispers of entire chapters of loyalist warriors that have disappeared into the Warp, only to re-emerge as corrupted servants of chaos. This raises unsettling questions about how many other loyalist forces might be at risk of falling to the same fate. The Imperium's strict measures against potential corruption may not be as foolproof as its leaders claim, and the ever-present threat of chaos may lie closer than anyone dares to admit. The Chaos Space Marines' use of ancient and forbidden technologies is another subject of intrigue. During their rebellion, they gained access to devices and knowledge from humanity's dark age of technology, much of which is now lost to the Imperium. Some of their war gear seems to defy known physical laws, hinting at the integration of warp energy or demonic influence. For example, certain weapons and armor used by Chaos forces appear self-repairing or even alive, raising questions about the full extent of their capabilities. The true potential of these artifacts remains unknown, though their existence suggests that the Chaos Space Marines may hold technological advantages the Imperium can scarcely comprehend. Another persistent enigma is the relationship between the Chaos Space Marines and the demonic entities they summon or serve. While many willingly ally with these creatures, others seem to resent their dependence on them. The bargains struck with demons are often shrouded in secrecy, with terms that may stretch across centuries or involve sacrifices on a galactic scale. Some demonic allies are rumored to have their own hidden agendas, manipulating their mortal hosts as pawns in greater schemes. The question of whether these alliances can ever truly be controlled by the Chaos Space Marines, or whether the warriors are merely tools of their demonic patrons, continues to fuel debate. The nature of the Eye of Terror itself, the primary stronghold of the Chaos Space Marines, is a profound mystery. This massive warp rift defies the understanding of mortal science, and its ever-shifting nature makes mapping or exploration nearly impossible. Within its confines are entire worlds and empires dedicated to chaos, where time and reality twist unpredictably. Some believe that the Eye contains ancient secrets from humanity's earliest days, including the remnants of civilizations that succumbed to chaos long before the Imperium was born. Others theorize that the Eye is a living entity, an extension of the Warp itself that actively shapes the events within it. The role of Chaos Space Marines in the grander schemes of the ruinous powers is another unanswered question. While their actions often seem driven by hatred of the Imperium or personal ambition, there is evidence to suggest that their campaigns are part of a larger plan. Some scholars speculate that Chaos is working toward a specific goal, such as merging the warp and the material universe into one chaotic realm. The Chaos Space Marines, as powerful and experienced servants, may be key instruments in this apocalyptic vision. However, whether they are aware of their role or merely pawns in a greater game remains uncertain. There are also persistent rumors of hidden Chaos enclaves operating deep within Imperial territory. These enclaves are said to be led by renegade Chaos Space Marines who have infiltrated the Imperium to sow discord from within. These shadowy figures are believed to manipulate cults, assassinate key leaders, and undermine Imperial institutions, all while avoiding detection. If such forces exist, they represent a dire threat capable of destabilizing entire sectors without ever revealing their presence. The concept of redemption is a particularly contentious topic. While most Chaos Space Marines are irredeemably corrupted, there are tales of individuals who have turned against their dark masters. Whether these stories are true or merely propaganda spread by the Imperium is unknown, but they raise troubling questions about the nature of chaos. If a servant of the Dark Gods can resist or even escape their influence, it suggests that chaos's grip, while powerful, may not be absolute. Finally, the ultimate fate of the Chaos Space Marines is a matter of speculation. While their strength and influence endure, some theorists argue that they are a dying force. The constant infighting among their ranks, the gradual consumption of their humanity by chaos, and the relentless campaigns of the Imperium have taken a toll. Others believe that they are merely evolving, shedding their mortal limitations to become something entirely new. Whether they will rise to dominate the galaxy or fade into obscurity is a question that may only be answered in the distant future. These mysteries and theories add an element of the unknown to the Chaos Space Marines, ensuring that their presence in the galaxy remains a source of fear and fascination. Their secrets, whether hidden within the Eye of Terror, encoded in ancient relics or whispered by demons, make them one of the most enigmatic and terrifying forces in the galaxy. Their true nature, a puzzle that may never be fully understood. The tale of the Chaos Space Marines is one of tragedy, betrayal, and the horrifying consequences of unchecked ambition. Their existence serves as a stark reminder of what happens when loyalty falters, when discipline is replaced by self-interest, and when the allure of forbidden power proves too tempting to resist. Once the finest warriors of humanity, their fall to chaos has transformed them into something far more terrifying, a dark mirror to the Imperium and a living embodiment of the galaxy's deepest fears. In the 10,000 years since their rebellion, the Chaos Space Marines have left an indelible mark on the universe. They have reshaped the course of history through their campaigns of terror, from the cataclysmic Horus heresy to the countless Black Crusades that followed. Each war, each invasion, and each act of violence has deepened the rift between the Imperium and the forces of chaos, ensuring that the galaxy remains locked in an endless cycle of conflict. Their continued presence is a wound that the Imperium cannot heal, a perpetual threat that demands constant vigilance and sacrifice. Yet, their story is not one of simple villainy. Within their ranks lie echoes of the warriors they once were, champions who fought for a brighter future before their ideals were twisted by chaos. Their tragedy lies in the choices they made, or were forced to make, that led them down this path. For some, the promise of chaos offered the freedom they were denied under the strict rule of the Imperium. For others, it was the lure of power or the desperation to survive in an unforgiving galaxy. In every case, their descent into damnation was marked by moments of both agency and manipulation, their fates sealed by a combination of their own flaws and the insidious influence of the ruinous powers. The Imperium's response to their betrayal has shaped its identity just as profoundly. In the face of chaos, the Imperium has become a bastion of dogma and repression, its institutions designed to root out heresy at any cost. The fear of another rebellion has driven humanity to extremes, fostering an atmosphere of paranoia and fanaticism that stifles innovation and progress. The Chaos Space Marines, in their defiance of the Emperor, have ensured that his empire remains locked in a state of eternal vigilance and war, unable to fully realize the vision that once guided its creation. Yet, even as the Chaos Space Marines sow destruction across the galaxy, they are not invincible. Their disunity, driven by the very nature of chaos, is both their strength and their weakness. While their warbands and legions are powerful, they are often fragmented, their leaders consumed by their own ambitions and rivalries. This fractious nature has prevented them from achieving the cohesion needed to deliver a final decisive blow to the Imperium. Instead, they are locked in an eternal struggle, not just against their enemies, but also against each other. The future of the Chaos Space Marines is as uncertain as the galaxy itself. Will they rise to greater heights of power, united under a new leader or vision, or will they continue to tear themselves apart in pursuit of their individual ambitions? Will the Imperium, battered and strained by millennia of war, find a way to overcome their influence, or will chaos ultimately consume everything? These questions remain unanswered, their resolution hidden in the swirling tides of fate and the ever-shifting nature of the warp. In the end, the Chaos Space Marines are more than just antagonists in the endless war for the galaxy. They are a symbol of the dangers that lie within humanity itself, its ambition, its pride, its capacity for cruelty. They are a reminder that even the greatest heroes can fall, and that the line between salvation and damnation is thinner than anyone dares to believe. As long as they exist, the galaxy will never know peace, for their very presence ensures that the cycle of war and chaos will continue without end. The final chapter of their story has yet to be written, but one thing is certain. The Chaos Space Marines will endure as long as the galaxy remains. They are a force of nature, an eternal threat that defines the grim reality of the Warhammer 40,000 universe. Their legacy is one of destruction and despair, but it is also a testament to the resilience of those who stand against them, a reflection of the unyielding struggle that shapes the fate of all who dwell among the stars.